Kia ora, welcome back. Here with number 6 in the Q&A session. So let's jump on in. First question, what happens if you clash with the directing staff? Can one bad interaction kill your chances? Not great. That's one of those how long is a piece of string questions. It depends on the DS, on the directing staff that you had the clash with. It depends on the other individual. It depends on what the clash is over. So there's any number of things that could impact the results or the outcome of that interaction or the clash as it's been put here with a directing staff member if you are a candidate on selection or cycle. Best advice I could give or try to give is don't clash with the directing staff. Just do what you're asked to do. And if you stuff up, own that mistake, own that indiscretion, whatever you want to call it, and try not to do it again. Showing the directing staff that you take ownership of your shortcomings, of your weaknesses, of the mistakes that you make, although still not ideal in terms of it happening in the first place, does give directing staff an indication as to your character, your integrity. So that could be a positive, but clashing, not a great idea. The second part, can one bad interaction kill your chances? Potentially. Again, it's one of those how long's a piece of string. I can't give you a specific answer to that. My advice to you and my counsel would be that yes, it can and would have a significant impact on your potential to continue on selection or cycle. So try to avoid that. Again, do as you're told. You are at the bottom of the heap, regardless of what you come into selection or cycle as, whether you're an officer, a sergeant, a corporal. Think of yourself resetting back to being a private, being first time into the army and learning all this stuff for the first time. Just if you can apply that mindset to yourself, especially if you're a more seasoned or experienced soldier, then that will go a long way to helping you potentially avoid those clashes and or how to deal with them should you have those clashes with staff. I'll leave that one there. Next question, how do you deal with self-doubt when it creeps in? For me, just having a really strong understanding and knowing why I was there in the first place, knowing why I applied to join the unit, knowing that I wanted to serve in the SAS. I didn't want to just see how far I could get on selection. I didn't want to just get accepted to the cycle. I wanted to go all the way, be badged, go into a squadron and serve as a member of the unit, deploy on operations, be with my mates, look after them, have their back, all that sort of stuff. That's what I wanted to do. So if you are looking to join the SAS to serve with that purpose, I think that will eliminate the self-doubts that you'll have, because you'll always be able to draw on your reason as to why you're wanting to go to the unit when potential self-doubts start to creep in. For me, it was more not so much self-doubt, and that's not to try to be arrogant or cocky about it. I don't recall having self-doubts about my ability to serve in the unit. I recall having some anxiety around and concerns and worries about not being good enough at that time. So my mindset was, I know I'm young. I know I've been in battalion for 2 minutes. If I fail this time, if they tell me no, that's okay. I'm just not good enough right now. I'm going to reapply and go again. So that was all linked into my why. And so self-doubt didn't really factor into me. It was just more about, okay, do as you're told, focus on the next task. Focus on the task that I'm in now, get through that, then focus on the next task, and so on and so on. So yeah, hopefully that helps in terms of the self-doubt. Try to eliminate that by understanding why you're going there in the first place. If you can do that, you probably won't have any self-doubt creeping in. Next question, can you really train for the unknown, or do you just focus on fundamentals? So 2 parts in there. Can you really train for the unknown? My take on that is no, you can't train for the unknown, because that's why it's called the unknown. You train based on potential, I suppose, scenarios that could happen. But even then, for a selection course and cycle, I've mentioned this in other videos, you don't want to train to be sleep deprived. You don't want to train to be hungry and starving. You don't want to train in terms of being a combination of wet, cold, hungry, starving, sleep deprived, and trying to travel long distance while carrying a heavy load and trying to make sure that you present really. You don't want to be practicing and training all of that stuff, at least not in one hit. Being wet, cold, and hungry was a standard part for me as an infantryman, being out in the bush. But I love that. That was a cool part of being a soldier. Sleep deprivation a little bit comes into that when you're out in the bush as well, when you're training, although not to the extent of a selection course. Hungry, not so much, because you've got food I knew, at least we did anyway, we carried our food and we had made sure that we had enough food and there was time to eat during that. So that part for me, I understood I'm just going to have to suck that up when I get onto it. And then there's the other parts around the things that the units will do during selection to keep you awake. And that stuff is largely unknown. Like, you don't really see too much of that in the selection courses, although you do see a little bit on the Australian one, I'll admit that. But there's still a heck of a lot more. And it's not until you're in it that you really get an understanding of what you're capable of. So can you train for the unknown? No, I don't think you can. Should you? I don't think you need to. I think having that unknown aspect and being surprised by the stuff that happens, at least for me, I felt played to my advantage, was a good thing for me, because then it meant that I needed to adapt and think quickly and overcome that. And the reason why I say that's good is because that's what you'll have to do on operations. That's what you'll have to do as a member within the unit. So you're never going to know everything that's going to be happening, and you want to have that ability, that resilience, to be able to adapt on the fly in challenging circumstances and difficult situations. Because if you don't have that and you deploy on operations and then you're in a gunfight, you're in a contact, and you panic and freeze because you didn't expect that, or it wasn't part of your training for whatever reason that you didn't plan on or prepare for, then you're probably going to struggle. So you might do enough. It'd be like a driving test. People these days, they'll work on the things that they need to do to be able to pass the test. But your driving and your skill and your competence comes with experience behind the wheel in different situations, and needing to be able to adapt and react or anticipate potential scenarios or bad things happening before they happen, hopefully before they happen. No different in the military. So having a blueprint of a selection course and having a checklist of everything that happens and the order and how long it goes for, etc., I don't think that helps. I don't think that sets you up for what it will take to be an operator within the unit. So the second part, sorry I rambled on about the unknown, but it's important. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. And the second part to that question was, do you just focus on the fundamentals? Fundamentals is important. So yes, basic soldiering, making sure that your kit's squared away, making sure that your dress and appearance is good, basic weapon handling, your stoppage drills, all that sort of stuff that you can do. Navigation. Now, I've spoken about this before. I think some people, excuse me, have misunderstood, or maybe I haven't explained myself as clearly as what I should have. It's no secret that I struggled with navigation when I went on to the New Zealand SA selection. When I say struggled with it, it's not that I didn't know how to navigate. It's that, and if I've said that, that's probably, well, not probably, that's incorrect. It's that I wasn't very good at it. Like, I wasn't a strong soldier when it came to navigation. I could navigate. I could plot a bearing. I could shoot a bearing. I could convert a magnetic bearing to a grid back bearing. I could convert a grid bearing to a magnetic bearing. I knew my paces per 100 meters. Every left foot is how I would count mine. I knew my bias. I would typically move to the left, or typically end up more left than right. So I had a really good understanding of the basics of navigation, and I could march on a bearing. So a lot of my selection in NZ, at least anyway, because I wasn't very good at map to ground, I'd take my bearing, I knew my bias, so I'd shoot my bearing slightly off to the right of the checkpoint, so that I knew once I got there, I'd either be closer to the checkpoint because of my natural left bias, or if I was intentional and really deliberate about staying on my bearing and ending up, I would be probably 200 meters, anywhere between 200 to 300 meters to the right of my target, and then I could change bearings once I'd reached my distance, and then start walking, reorientating myself, walking onto my checkpoint. So I had a good understanding, and I suppose you might call basic fundamentals, but very, very basic for me. So it's not that I couldn't navigate, it's that I wasn't very good at it. I felt anyway. I got a heck of a lot better being on selection and on the NZSA cycle, and that set me up in good stead by the time I went to the Australian one. So basic fundamentals through infantry, improved whilst I was on selection and cycle. Not really ideal where you want to be improving your navigation on selection. That's just my 2 cents. You want to be, preferably you want to be proficient at it before you get on there. But cycle definitely helped reinforce all of that. So I was very confident by the time it came to navigation, by the time I hit the Australian Defence Force and went on selection there. So all of that stuff, fundamentals, yes. Focus on that. Make sure that you've got a good grasp of all of that, and that you can then apply that when you go into selection. So anyway, I've rambled long enough on this one, so we'll wrap this one up there. Thanks for sticking around and tuning in. And as always, any challenges, difficulties, struggles that you may be going through, keep turning up, people. keep staying in the fight, keep smashing, keep moving forward. And until the next video,